I think it's time we talk about the live action remakes that's been happening over the past 6, 7 years now. During the first night of Wicked, we were watching a couple of trailers for the next set of movies that are coming out next year. One of the movies that we saw, as a trailer that is, was the live action remake of How to Train Your Dragon. This has been a problem since Maleficent. Now, this problem needs to be addressed to the Hollywood industry and all the movie makers that have been doing this sort of thing, and now we got to talk about it. So, firstly, when it comes to a live action remake, it throws off the hard work of the artists. And when I say artists, I'm talking about people who draw on pencil and paper, ink and paint, all that kind of skills that make the art come to life. They learn everything from traveling, culture, and even history. After that, all the artists interpret everything they experienced. Everything that we see in an animated film is a form of art, and it's great to look at. One example I like to give is this artist that I remember watching on YouTube. And what this guy did is that he circled around Paris, France for about 15 to 20 minutes in a helicopter. And then when he came back to his art studio, he put a large canvas and he just drew everything he saw from memory. The other example I like to give is Glenn Keane, who is working in the Disney studios right now. He's best known for animating Ariel the Beast from Beauty and the Beast and doing the artwork for Tangled. I remember watching the making of the original Beauty and the Beast, and he said, "Let me animate the transformation sequence for Beast." So what he did is that he traveled to all the greatest sculptures with hands and feet, and he took all of that and executed that to the beast's transformation. And after that, we get to see the final result. One thing I'd like to mention about animators is that they are actors too. The 9 old men, for instance, that worked for Disney, Walt Disney. But 3 prime animators that I keep in mind are Milt Kahl, Frank Thomas, and Ollie Johnston. Let's start with Frank and Ollie. These animators would act out the part and then they would animate the characters on paper. In the movie The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, Ollie Johnston was lecturing how he interpreted the persecutor in the Mr. Toad sequence. He explains the body language, he explains the way he walks, and the attitude. Another character that he animated was Thumper in Bambi. And he was explaining how he just coughs for a little bit, clears his throat, and then he starts quoting his father. Now, Frank Thomas is also a great example of the 9 old men. Why is he important to the Walt Disney Company? He changed the way Mickey Mouse should be animated. For all the videos of the Disney Legends, he showed a spreadsheet of how he designed Mickey through shapes, and that's very important to all artists in colleges and high school. Everything about that is important. During the making of Mickey Meets the Giant, where Mickey Mouse was a tailor and he's fighting off a giant, Frank Thomas says that he had to use pear shapes to make the body of Mickey Mouse. Now, to me, that kind of makes sense because I remember being in college and they told me there was like a set of animators doing one part of the body, and that's pretty tedious. One person doing the head, one person doing the legs and the shoes. Every person was involved and in charge of one part of the body of Mickey Mouse. Speaking of body parts, Milt Kahl was very well known for body parts. So look, you see my hands? This was the most important for all artists. What gives them away is the head swoggles, the hands, and the funny expressions on the characters. One of the lectures by Don Bluth, check out his channel one day, he is heavily influenced by Milt Kahl because he used to work for Disney. And if you look at his characters, it's pretty identical to the Milt Kahl animation. And again, he had to use shapes and sizes to interpret the hands. It could be either a male or a female. If you want me to tell you, for males, it's rectangles, and for females, they have sharp point ends on the fingers. For each animator, that is for the traditional ways, they had to sit at their desks with a mirror. That way, they look at themselves and interpret what character was given to them, and then they just express the animation and then they execute it on paper. These are the traits of animators being actors themselves. If you make a live action remake of a film animated by the Nine Old Men, their work would mean nothing to us. In a sense, it's kind of like pissing on someone's grave. Another thing about live action remakes is that it kind of takes away the comedy and the quiet moments in an animated film. Do you ever wonder why a live action remake is overwhelming and stressful? The reason why is all the quiet moments from the original animated film, that is taken away. When animating a film, you need to give the audience a quiet moment for them to jump into the minds of the character, or at least get into the scene to know what the character is doing. Those quiet moments quiets the audience mind. They make them laugh, or sometimes it kind of makes them very emotional. Chuck Jones, who was one of the animators and directors of the Looney Tunes, these moments are called the Roadrunner narratives, which means not letting the characters talk and let the action provide the story. So he says, when making a Roadrunner film with the coyote and the Roadrunner, no talking, just the meep meeps. So with that being said, you're watching the coyote being quiet, let the sound effects tell the story, and you're watching everything come together. These are sequences that all animators follow to tell quiet, emotional, and suspenseful moments in a film. If you take all those quiet, long sequences away, if you take all those quiet moments away, you are not giving the audience time to put themselves into the film. Two prime examples I like to give are the live action Beauty and the Beast and the live action Avatar The Last Airbender. I'm not going to talk about Beauty and the Beast because we all know that's a bad film, but I want to talk about the Avatar Netflix live action series. I watched the entire series on Netflix. All of it was rushed because they took away quiet moments, long sequences, and they were not giving us time to settle into the scene. I believe in this time and age, the movie makers for Netflix, Hollywood, it doesn't matter what studio, they don't care about quiet moments. So the Roadrunner narrative is very, very important for films, either it's live action or for animated films, mostly animated films. This also includes the comedy in a live action remake. There is a lot of comedy that both a child and an adult can understand. I know for a fact that this version of How to Train Your Dragon is going to be very rushed and boring and very corny and no longer funny. You take away all the comedy that Jay Baruchel inserted, the film won't be just as funny. Other than taking away comedy, they also changed the stories to fit the current audiences. Now, this is going to be a very hard pill to swallow for both me and you who are watching, because I noticed a lot of changes that happened with live action films, and I know for a fact that with animators being actors and comedy being taken, it's also who plays the part of the characters. These changes are made due to the demands of the current era. Equality, political correctness. So everything that we saw from the original films is being taken away just to satisfy those who are very sensitive. Like if we showed a film from the past to the current era, they would be easily offended or try to cancel it, which I hate with a passion. I heard a lot about what they did with How to Train Your Dragon, so Hiccup still is the same, but the others the characters like Astrid, the twins, and Fish Legs, they have been changed to satisfy the audiences. Like Astrid is now race swapped, and we're going to get to that subject a little bit later because I don't want to be canceled. I understand representation, but sometimes we need the negative parts to build character in life through movies and in life. As an Asian American, I grew up with Star Wars and I looked up to Luke Skywalker, who is a white, straight male. I related to him a lot because he shows what it means to suffer as a kid to an adult. Now, every little dynamic of the character did not matter to me because relating to his suffering was the key to a main character. If you change that character's background, there won't be anything relatable to that character. Sometimes it would be kind of forced into the minds of the audience, and you don't want that. If you force anything personal, it would make the audience feel very uncomfortable. During the second night of watching Wicked, I really didn't care for who was playing Alphaba because it's a Broadway show turning into a film. In Broadway, those kind of rules don't exist. When I say Broadway, I mean like stage plays in general. It really depends if they can play the part or not. I'm glad that whoever was casted for Alphaba got the chance. She got the chance because she knew how to sing, she knew how to act, and she had the potentials to play the part. Now, as for Hollywood itself, I think all of it should just shut down until they have an original idea, which means every studio, every Cartoon Network, and I don't mean that as a pun, everything has got to shut down until they get an idea. Everything coming out today is not original. Maybe Sonic the Hedgehog because it seems promising. Maybe I want to watch that one day. This is why, in my mind, Godzilla Minus One and Wicked are the most successful because these were ideas that would please audiences all alike. I preach this because we need to have original ideas, and having a remake of an animated film is not a very good idea. Leave the 2D animated films alone because it would disregard everything that was given to us and to all artists for the future. Their art, their comedy, their skills, and stories inspire us to become those future artists. Maybe someday, somebody who's watching this film is going to be inspired to do more art, come up with an animated film, or even help the industry become wonderful and magical once again. I hope you like this video. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.